1 week season.
1 week season, fam. La Familia. Welcome back. It is Mike Johnson, your host, mjohnson86, here with you another week of Wake and Snake. It is July 21st. What that means is basically every team or most teams have kicked off training camp in some fashion. We are hitting the ground running here. We are locked in as there's tons of news coming out. This first week has kind of been a whirlwind with several different things. We've had retirements. We have had some legal things, some potential suspensions. Those second-round picks started to sign. So a lot of moving parts here, and we're going to dig into it all while we draft. Of course, as always, we're going to draft on Drafters. Today we'll be drafting in their $3 mini contest, $25,000 for first place, $125,000 total prize pool. Of course, if you are new to Drafters, use code OWS on that first deposit. 100% deposit match, and that will be up to $100. So throw $100 on, can get $200 to play with, and attack their 17-week cumulative scoring format. So with all of that said, don't want to forget, with the training camp opening, we have a price drop this week to $69 for our Best Ball Plus premium subscription. Best Ball Basics, again, the rankings, the written works and whatnot, which you should have for all our subscribers, should have another one popping up today, one of those on the scroll. So check those out. But again, $29 for the basics, $69 for the premium. And with all of that said, going to bring on my boy, StatATL. Billy, welcome.
Man, I've gone back from the esteemed colleague to the boy.
You're always esteemed. That's just implied at this point.
Mike, good morning.
You're esteemed until further notice. If just assume that you're an esteemed colleague until you hear otherwise.
Awesome. How's the weekend treating you? How's life at home? I know you guys. You've got a lot going on in your town this week, right?
Yeah, a little crazy. There's I live in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, and it is the site of EAA, the Experimental Aircraft Association. They host their Air Venture giant air show. There's like 100,000 planes on the ground in this little tiny airport. They've got a ton of land, but there's like 700,000 or 800,000 people come to town. It's usually like a 70,000 person city. So things get busy. You'll probably might hear some planes overhead today. But yeah, it's kind of a crazy week around here, but it's fun, good for the local economy. And so a little busy, but keeping my eye on the ball.
Yeah. Awesome. Happy to hear that. Do you guys take the family out to watch any of the air show or any of the planes or anything like that?
Yeah, the little guy is like 1, so it's kind of tough for him. Daughter, we've taken her the last 2 years. It's very spread out, so it's tough, but she enjoyed it. Each year she cares a little bit more. Mm-hmm. For adults, it's cool, but is what it is. So let's get into the football.
Yeah, for sure.
No Cap Max saying hi. Good morning. How we doing? Hey, terrific. Got my cup of Joe. Drafting best ball. What more can you ask for?
I know. Just living the dream here, boys.
Yeah. What do we got? He also says, "What up, Stat?"
Yeah. No Cap. What's going on? Thanks for joining us this morning.
So yeah, let's get into it. Let's take a look at this draft. The big thing, I think, since last week, I think it was after last week's recording, the Rashee Rice thing came out. You see Stat I say reaching just relative to where he had gone previously, ADP around 37, but Rashee Rice came to a plea agreement, which is 5 years probation with 30 days jail time to be served at any time during that 5 years. So with that legal process being done, it becomes like where do we go from here? Do I take him? I'll take him. Earlier probably than I'll have him ranked, but we're talking about him, so makes for discussion. So anyways, it's kind of where I've had him ranked anyways prior to, I had Worthy ahead of him, kind of expecting this. Now that the legal process is played out, the expectation is that suspension will be forthcoming. I have heard kind of the highest that we would expect would be six games. I've heard as low as 2. My guess is somewhere in the middle, like that 3 or 4 range. So obviously, I dropped my thoughts for the premium subscribers, a little more detailed in the Discord. But yeah, it'll be interesting. I think Worthy definitely, you see last year how he finished the season was pretty impressive. 35 points, of course, in the Super Bowl, 22 points against the Bills in the conference championship game. But, 4 or 5 games, 20 plus points in to end the season. Really came on strong as a first round rookie entering year 2. Pretty exciting for him. So yeah, I think about where you've got him, after, I would say after the Davante Adams, if you're looking at our draft board here, that Tyreek, Garrett Wilson, T. Higgins, Davante Adams tier, I think Worthy has an argument to be as high as anyone else after that.
Yeah, I'm with you. I find myself taking him almost anywhere in the 3rd round at this point, and we'll kind of see where his ADP settles. Another guy who I think who went in the 4th round to the 11 hole. Another guy I think we're going to continue to see, a little bit of a rise to is Amarian Hampton. We got that news last week with Najee Harris. Has been kind of more rumors the last 2 weeks, but has that issue with a firework on 4th of July. They place him on the NFI list. So, I feel like Hampton is a guy that if it's just him in the backfield, he honestly could be going in the 3rd, 4th round of every one of these drafts. So he's a guy that I don't mind kind of trying to be a little aggressive or early on at this point. And I think about where he went just past the 3-4 turn in the late 30s, low 40s, I think is probably fair. And if we get some more news on, Najee Harris, and maybe it's a little bit more serious than they're leading on, I think he becomes a 3rd round pick, maybe even a set. Like if there's no Najee Harris, like if the injury is really serious, like he's a 2-3 turn pick in my mind.
Yeah, and then it's just once they get into that range, the specifics are always kind of all over the place in terms of specific drafts. Like guys from 22 to 27 are kind of interchangeable because it's a lot of that's like a strategy thing. Like, oh, I want to get this guy because I think I'll get this other guy on the way back, or vice versa. So, but I think there's kind of some tiers, and Chase Brown, Jacobs, Bucky Irving, there's not a whole lot of difference if you remove Najee from the equation. Not a whole lot of difference between Hampton and all those guys. So would concur there. Rashee Rice, we talked about the Worthy aspect. Rice, the suspension will be interesting. It's always interesting to see situations like this where it's almost like I feel like him being drafted in the 2nd or 3rd round or early 3rd round was way too aggressive and kind of ignoring what was probably looming and the fact that he's coming off an injury.
Mm-hmm.
And now it'll be interesting to see how far he drops, because I think there could be overreaction once that suspension officially drops. So either way, we'll see how it plays out, but it'll be interesting.
Yeah, no doubt. I wasn't sure if you were going to go grab RJ Harvey there. I feel like it was Mixon or Harvey for you there. RJ Harvey, one of the 2nd rounders who signed his rookie contract. I think 3 or 4 days ago. So not that there has been a ton of concern, but just kind of one of those situations to continuing to be monitoring with some of those guys. But I do feel like the dominoes have started to fall. And I think you're going to get most of those guys, if not all of those guys, signed in the next week or two.
Yeah. And, some of those guys have gotten those fully guaranteed contracts. I know Luther Burden got a fully guaranteed contract. The 35th pick, whoever that was, they got a fully guaranteed contract. Somebody in there's been a couple other that signed, and it's like an 85 to 90% guarantee. So, yeah, I think, the tide has turned, and those guys will all get into camp, if they aren't already very soon. So will be an interesting kind of how it plays out. You see Chris Godwin still on the board here, ADP of 68.88, so dropping a little bit, and he's kind of continued to drop. I feel like he was like an early 6th round pick for a lot of this. He, of course, is not like opening camp. He's not out there. Again, this is one of those situations that is always interesting to me because this isn't new information. Like, the assumption was not that he would be out there running routes on July 20th. So it's always interesting to me when, like, that should be common knowledge. Like, their expectation and hope for him is week 1, so he's not a veteran, right? It's not like he's a year 2 guy or year 3 guy. We know he knows what he's doing.
He knows the offense.
Yeah, they've got a new offensive coordinator, but they're not gonna. It's from in-house. They're not, nothing. There's no actual new information. It's just confirmation of what we should have known. So seeing a guy like that who might drop to you here, I'm really putting the pressure on you to.
If he's there at 77 in 1 pick, I'm taking him.
Yeah, there you go.
Because again, as you said, that it's not new information. That was built into his kind of his previous ADP. There was never an expectation. So yeah, great question here from NoCap. Because I think you're probably going to see Ricky Pearsall go off the board in the next couple picks. We saw Jennings go at the 5-6 turn. I think that's an interesting situation with both Pearsall and Ayuk on the pup. To me, like, I feel like it just really cements George Kittle, his role in the offense this year. And I mean, I feel like Juwan Jennings, that's really just, you're going to see him sign, because they're in their window right now, San Francisco, with, Super Bowl aspirations, like legit Super Bowl aspirations. They've got to, they don't have a ton of depth at wide receiver. So to me, I really do like Jennings. In the early 6th round, I think he's a guy that I don't generally pass on if I'm about where you are in the draft, picking around 63, 64. I feel like if he's on the board there, he's a guy I generally find myself clicking. What about you?
Yeah, I think, kind of hit the nail on the head there. Like, there's a couple things. So first of all, like, the Jennings trade demand, like, that was kind of news and people were talking about it and reacting to it. But also, like, these guys legit have like group texts, like they're like friends with each other. You know what I mean? Like, they're aware of the situations that are going on. So like Ricky Pearsall, who he's actually, it's a little concerning, the hamstring thing still keeping him on PUP, but he could be activated at any point. But also, like, with how last season went for him, and with the Ayuk situation, with him coming back from the knee stuff, which is probably going to cost him a few games at least, like, it makes sense that they would be conservative with Pearsall, not going to bring him back until, he's fully ready to go, because they're going to need him at the start of the year. And from the Jennings aspect, he's kind of unhappy with this contract. He's probably like outperformed it. So yeah, it's smart of him to say, hey, my buddies one of them has a bum knee that's going to keep him out several weeks. This other rookie, like they're treating him with kid gloves. So like I'm the dude, like he's going to use that leverage a little bit. So yeah, I think Jennings, if you can get him anytime in the 6th round, I think that's pretty good value. I do like Pearsall. We saw him flash some single week upside, kind of fits the mold of the Deebo Samuel thing. He can some of those gadgety type plays and short area making plays after the catch kind of fits that. And then Ayuk, we've really seen him, his ADP start to crater, which again, one of those guys who he's down to like pick 120 now in ADP on drafters. Earlier in towards the start of the draft season, he was consistently going in the 8th round. So, he's a guy that I wasn't as high on early, but now I'm willing to take some shots on Ayuk as like your wide receiver 6 or 7 in the 10th, maybe 11th round if he slides even more. I think they're all kind of appropriately valued, and there's meat on the bone for any of them to outproduce that just because we know how good this offense can be.
Yeah, I think you and I are aligned there. I think it's roster specific though for me, and you made a great point. I think on builds where if I went a little heavier, I wasn't as deep with wide receiver, and Ayuk would be my wide receiver 5. I feel like I'm less excited to take him there because I feel like you've got to build in the fact that he's likely going to miss several of the weeks to start the season. And as we talk about, almost every stream, every week counts the same on drafters. That's kind of the biggest difference between drafters and, your DraftKings, your underdog contests. Like week 1 points mean just the same as week 17 points. So, I feel like if I'm not as deep at wide receiver, he's a guy that I generally am not excited to draft as my wide receiver 4 or 5, which is not usually the case. I'm usually pretty heavy on wide receivers. This is unusual for me to take 3 running backs so early, but can't build all the drafts the same way.
Right. Yeah, totally agree, and I think that this is kind of moving on to a different topic, but Trey Harris went there at the 8-9 turn. One of the pieces of news we got was the Mike Williams retirement.
Mm-hmm.
A couple things with that. One, Williams wasn't really a guy that I was drafting. I don't think many people probably were, but just the idea and his past with the Chargers and his skill set, I think the assumption, or he kind of clouded the whole outlook for what that was going to play out as. Removing him, I think, makes it pretty clear that top 3 is going to be 3 receivers who the Chargers have used 1st or 2nd round picks on in the last 3 years. That's Ladd McConkey, Quentin Johnston, and Trey Harris. So I continue to think Johnston is a pretty good value. Trey Harris, he's a talented rookie. I don't know that I think other people will probably become higher on him than I have been, which is fine. I'm going to go ahead and take Purdy, which is fine again. But in general, that archetype, like an 8th, 9th round pick, he's a talented player, came from a pass-happy offense in Ole Miss. Really the worry with the Chargers is just what does that volume look like? Do they throw the ball enough for that to matter? One of the beautiful things with best ball, though, is that those guys can help you in the weeks that they help you. Whereas if Quentin Johnston and Trey Harris are probably going to be very frustrating to own in your home leagues, right? Because it's going to be hard to predict when there's enough volume to get them the ball. I know is it Arande Gadsden? Is that your guy?
It's a guy that I love taking in the 20th round. Yeah, when I have when I have Justin Herbert.
Yeah, I know that's but I guess the overarching thing with the Chargers is I think there's a good chance that the receivers are used a lot, and the tight end is, it's different than some teams where the tight end is more of a focal point to the offense. Gadsden, of course, 20th round is a tight end 3. That's fine because he could pop up for a couple games here and there too.
Mm-hmm.
But in general, Najee Harris, not really a pass catcher if he's involved. Hampton can be, but that's not really how they used their running backs last year, at least. So even if they are low volume, if it's concentrated on the 3 receivers, there's certainly pass, especially in this format, to them helping out a lot.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. And I have found myself, I don't want to say pulling up, but I do feel like a guy like Quentin Johnson, like I don't mind grabbing him around early.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like he has that upside, and I feel like for me on the clock here, like Quentin Johnson's ADP is probably 25 past Brandon Ayuk, but he's a guy that I feel like I'd rather take here. I mean, maybe this roster should go Marvin Mims, but I'm not going to do that actually.
Yeah. Stat, a man of conviction.
Yeah.
I like it.
And it's really just for me, like I'm trying to theoretically like plan ahead a little bit. I feel like it's something that, and it's, it's something we talk about on streams a lot, but like I like to lean into correlation a little bit more. And if he falls, would be, whatever, 133 to 140 would be like a 6-pick slide. Like, if he's there, I have to, I will take Trevor Lawrence at 140. So, I feel like if I want another wide receiver in that tier, the Marvin Mims, Quentin Johnson, Brandon Ayuk, Cedric Tillman tier, like I probably need to take him at 125, because if the quarterback that I want to take is there at 140, it's unlikely that he would fall to pick 149 or 150. He's not going to slide a full round and a half. So just kind of being cognizant of the draft board and what the situation is.
Those are the things you got to think through, when you're on the clock and when you're, as you are drafting, kind of being aware of the board, being aware of, kind of having a plan. Like, you have to have a plan that, of course, things can change or can get knocked off what that plan is. But you've got to have the plan, and then you can adjust it as you go. I think that's kind of the key. Add to the.
Yeah. And for me, what, and as you're going, like I'm looking at the board and I was looking at the 11 hole with Rub Dubs. He's got Nico Collins. He's also got, Travis Hunter. So it's likely that at that turn, obviously the pick, Lawrence just went in front of me. So where's Waddle? Waddle is to my right. So likelihood of that. Actually, I don't want to because I've already got a week 12 bye.
Don't worry about the stack.
I know.
Just couldn't help yourself.
Buddy, we have a difference of opinion. That's what's great about the show. It gives me more time to figure out what I want to do.
Yeah.
Moving forward. It's a guy that probably is there at 149.
So one of the things you'll see here too, and so one of the things I write is my storyboards, just talking through the kind of the thought process as I'm drafting and kind of building what is the story for a specific roster. So like for this one, you could see I took the value on Mahomes when he dropped into the 8th round. I had Rice there, which I guess made it a little more appealing. and kind of made it make sense a little bit. But anyways, I went ahead and took Purdy as well in the 10th round. And I had Pearsall again. He fell, got some value on him, about a half round. Then Ayuk fell as well. So now in the 11th round, when I took Ayuk, so now I have Ayuk, Pearsall, and Purdy all on this roster. Now Purdy is paired with Mahomes, kind of a bet on each of them. Neither one of them needs to be like a top 3 quarterback. Just good seasons and complementing each other makes sense. But then the next one, so I have Ray Davis ranked above Isaac Guerrero. But the issue is looking at this roster, like how does that play out where, that San Francisco passing game stack kind of takes off. And kind of my thought is like, well, maybe something happens to CMC, who we know is 29 years old, coming off, he's had some injuries in the past. So, taking Guerrero over Davis earlier than ADP kind of ties that story together a little bit, or at least that's how I'm, in my mind playing it out.
Yeah, no, I think that again, another thing that we talk about a lot, kind of behind the paywall, but also on these streams, is just kind of telling a story, and you call them storyboards when we put them out, to subscribers, but telling a story of how this roster is successful, and not just sticking to rankings. I feel like that's a really big advantage that we'll get later in the draft season, as you'll have people come over to drafters who will likely be chasing overlay. I know we're only on the 21st of July, but this contest, reasonable possibility, will overlay again this year. You'll have a whole bunch of people come over chasing overlay that will auto draft. They'll just set rankings and they'll just draft. And that's to me, that's a big advantage. Because while those teams can still get there, like you just need so many more things to kind of break your way.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, the context of when you take these players and how the points come together and how the rosters come together, extremely relevant for sure. Sorry, I'm getting distracted by the board here.
It's tough to draft and chat at the same time.
I believe the Jaden Blue, there was some negative reports on him that kind of came out last week about like laziness and where did he go here? He's gone, hasn't he? Yeah, he went in the 11th round there. So not affecting him too much, but his ADP still in the 120s. But there was some negative stuff about him. I think the overall takeaway, and I bring this up mainly because of Ferguson, we saw go off in the last round. But I'm really bullish on this Cowboys offense, the passing game in particular.
Mm-hmm.
Brian Schottenheimer, I think he's more aggressive than people realize, and he's more willing to, I think, so he was in Seattle when Russell Wilson, when they had DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, when they opened it up for a little bit there and were pretty fun for about 2/3 of a season before they kind of pumped the brakes. But that was a fun time. And I think you look at this offense and all that the Jaden Blue, and I love Miles Sanders late in drafts. Javonte Williams, I haven't taken much of him, but I get like if he's a feature back, like it makes sense. But none of those guys are like workhorse, like going to build the offense around them types. So, I think Ferguson, CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens, those guys are going to be very, very busy for sure. Mm-hmm. So, I'm very bullish on the Cowboys offense.
Yeah, I think I'm bullish on the Cowboys pass catchers. I'm not super high on any of the running backs.
Yeah, and you don't have to be for their costs. I guess that's kind of the point.
I think of the guys, of all the running backs, I have the most shares of probably Miles Sanders, not because I like him personally any more than any of the other guys, but just because he's typically available in the 18th, 19th round. And it's just like at that cost, you don't have to be right.
Yeah.
Am I going to get to take my first share of Kyle Pitts? No.
You are.
It was a possibility.
Another guy I want to talk about. So Jalen Wright, who I selected with my last pick, third round pick last year, I believe, third or fourth round pick from the 2024 season. So he was kind of came in behind the Achane and Raheem Mostert duo last season. And then when you looked at, let me make my pick here. Shipley. He never really did much last year. Kind of just was a guy on the roster. But when you look at the overall context of things with the Jonnu Smith trade, who we still see on the board here, a lot of the attention goes to Achane, Waddle, Tyreek, deservedly so, and how focused that could be. But also, you look at from the standpoint of it's rare what we see guys do what Achane did as a rookie 2 years ago, and kind of how they were built and how Achane was his most efficient was kind of a splitting of with Mostert and Achane being involved. And so I think that there's a decent chance that obviously things I'm not in on Darren Waller. I don't think that the rapper from a year ago who's 34 years old and has missed, he sat out an entire season. At one point, he had some addiction and stuff going on in his personal life early in his career. And he missed a ton of time with injuries, even his last 2 or 3 years before he retired last year. I'm not, I don't see him as being much of a factor. So then it becomes, I think it could be the wide receiver duo, obviously, and then a bit of a running back duo. So I think that'll be an interesting thing to see play out for sure.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting because, I think you took him right around ADP, but had Wright fall on whatever that is, 3 more spots. I think he's my second or third highest owned running back. I find myself basically taking a running back almost every single time in the whatever that is, the 14th, 15th round between pick 157 and 180. And so for me, I am peppering Jalen Wright, Braylon Allen, Will Shipley, Roshan Johnson, this range. I just feel like there's such immense upside. Mad Sox says, I love Kyle Pitts. I don't know that I have a single share of Kyle Pitts. So if Kyle Pitts is the guy who breaks best ball this year, you probably won't see me at the top of leaderboards.
Understood.
You have any guys like that, Mike, that you are completely avoiding at ADP? And let's,
I have not. I don't think I've taken a single share of Khalil Shakir, who is ADP of 79. I think he's a good player. I just, those wide receivers that I pick in the 6th, 7th, 8th rounds, I like feeling there's meat on the bone where they could give me a top 10, top 15 season potentially if things break right. I don't think Shakir. I don't think Shakir is going to be a dominant type guy. I think if I'm taking the Buffalo passing game, I think Keon Coleman or Kincaid, guys who are talented, young, high draft capital, haven't quite done it yet, but we could see them emerge for sure. That's kind of my approach to it, at least.
Yeah, I like that. I think when I looked, I think I've taken 4 or 5 shares of Shakir. Again, I really like leaning into the correlation, and typically on Josh Allen rosters when he falls into the, I guess what would be the eighth round, when he falls into the 8th round, and if I've got Allen, I feel like those are the builds where I'm willing to take a shot. But yeah, you and I are aligned there. He's not a guy in that range that I feel like offers you the same the same level of upside. Like, I find myself taking Matthew Golden or Josh Downs way more than I should. But to me, those are guys where if things break the right way, could give you a top 15 wide receiver season.
For sure. I just took Elijah Arroyo, who the big news out of Seattle, I guess probably overlooked by like the casual fan. But Noah Fant was released by the Seahawks, which kind of opens the path for, which to me, Arroyo, two things. One, the second round picks have started signing. And then two, I'm going to add Brashard Smith as a 7th running back there. But two, Arroyo coming off an injury in his final season of college. Got to expect that if they're releasing Fant at this point, they're pretty confident in the other things that they have. That'll be one thing to really focus on and watch is the reports for the Seattle tight end position. Also, AJ Barner, a second-year tight end. He's a guy I haven't drafted, but if Arroyo, he's a rookie, so sometimes takes some time or those guys don't ascend. I've got a ton of Arroyo shares, as I know many of our subscribers do, especially if they're looking at our rankings. But like, what's the path at this point where Arroyo doesn't pan out? Well, AJ Barner might be a great 20th round pick. So just something for people to keep in mind and kind of keep an eye on over the next, 3-4 weeks, because we'll have a pretty good idea what that looks like in the coming days. Yeah, no,
I think that this is you buying in early on him. I think that if we start getting really positive news out of camp in the next week or two, that he looks really strong. And, again, someone that we've been talking about for the past 2 months at this point, I would expect his ADP to rise to probably about even ahead of where you took it now. You know what I mean? Like I have a hard time, taking Darren Waller ahead of him. I even think like Juwan Johnson has some big question marks. He's a guy that I like taking later in the 18th, 19th round, but I feel like I take Arroyo ahead of him every time.
Yeah.
So I like that. I like that pick for you there.
Keaton Mitchell for you, positive reports about him all summer, very explosive player. Another guy that it'll be interesting to see, is he able to challenge Justice Hill a little bit? Hill did a nice job last season, of course, for the Ravens, complimenting Derrick Henry. But sometimes, these young explosive players, there's a breaking point where like they're too good to keep off the field. So it'll be interesting to see if he's able to do that. My selection here, Marquez Valdes-Scantling. So I now have Zach Charbonnet, Jackson Smith-Njigba, Arroyo, and Scantling. So MVS, kind of an overlooked thing. And I've probably been too low on him. I don't know that I've drafted him at all prior to this, but just something I was thinking through this morning. Of course, I did the team previews for the NFC for our Best Ball Plus subscribers and Best Ball Basics. You can find them there in the written content on the scroll. But so he was last year was on the Saints. Of course, he had those few spike weeks, kind of popping up once they had injuries in the receiving core. But Clint Kubiak is the offensive coordinator for the Seahawks this season. He was the offensive coordinator last season for the Saints. So some connection there. It's kind of similar to some other situations we've seen where guys, they bring their guys. We talked about with Diami Brown, how he had his best game of the season, or one of the best games of his career, in the playoffs against the Bucs. Then Liam Cohen, the Bucs OC from last season, goes out and signs Brown. So just little things like that. I think, MVS, you could probably get him in the 18th to 20th round, and he provides pass to where he can really help your lineup. and it wouldn't be shocking. It would make some sense in terms of
Jalen Royals. Thank you.
looking at him. See if he's the one I want to talk about. Oh. Went a different direction with it.
It's okay. My feelings are hurt.
Marcus Robinson. I think for this roster specifically, Robinson makes a lot of sense, especially. He's a guy I've taken a lot of in general. There's a chance he has like a DUI suspension coming up. We'll see. But having Ayuk and Pearsall, Ayuk we know is going to miss some time to start the season. Who's going to fill in that role? I think it's most likely to be Robinson. Jacob Cowing, also a second-year guy, kind of could fit a very specific role, I think. I don't think he's going to be like a every down player, but he's a guy to keep an eye on throughout camp for sure. He's had some good reports coming out during OTAs and minicamp, but he's very small. And guys like that, I kind of don't buy too much into until we see him producing with the pads on. But anyways, I think Robinson for this specific roster, getting him and MVS veterans who I think will produce early in the season kind of complements the Rashee Rice, Brandon Ayuk, potentially Pearsall kind of slow starts. So went that route with it. Got a little aggressive with my bye weeks. I know you don't like that, but here we are.
Yeah, no, I like it. Justin asks, who are some guys that we feel like we're getting a lot of just kind of in general? Says he's getting a lot of Gibbs. Not sure how he feels about it. I mean, Gibbs is a guy that I like. I don't find myself in general taking running back all that often in the first round. So not something I'm personally opposed to. Certainly a guy that flashed really strong upside in the latter half of last year when David Montgomery was out. I mean, I think he was probably the RB1 during that stretch.
Yeah, he was.
So yeah, I mean, certainly not a guy I'm avoiding.
Yeah, I love Gibbs. He actually, if you count week 18 when he had 46 points and Barkley was rested, he actually passed Barkley for the RB1 for the season. But yeah, I mean, it's rare that you think like this for a first round player. Usually you're thinking about like the mid round running back and what if the early round running back gets hurt? What is that scenario? But yeah, Gibbs, if you were to remove David Montgomery from the equation, he's probably the best player in fantasy. Him and Chase are up there, and obviously he's only in his third year. So yeah, I'm extremely bullish on Gibbs. He's a top 3 player for me in DraftKings underdog type formats, just because the later you get into the season, like we saw that week 18 game against the Vikings, the 46 points, like that's the outcome. I don't think anybody has a higher single week. I think Chase and Barkley probably match him from a single week ceiling perspective and what that can actually look like. But I don't think anybody has a higher ceiling than what Jahmyr Gibbs has. So yeah, I love Gibbs. And he's fun to watch.
Yeah, no doubt. Our friend No Cap asks, are there some players we think we should be attacking right now because we expect their price to rise? I think the last guy we talked about, Elijah Arroyo, I think typically is a guy you're getting in the 19th or 20th round. He's a guy that I'm buying on a lot. I mean, I've been buying on him all draft season. But yeah, I mean, I think he's a guy I would consider targeting a decent amount in the latter part of the draft.
A guy that I think is interesting that has been dropping, at least on drafters, is Cooper Kupp, who obviously he did not look good to end last season. He didn't do much in the playoffs. Their last 3 regular season games, he had.
We're hoping to start maybe on the technology architecture.
You got some noise in the background.
Kind of product demo and then step through the
Um, anyways, Cooper Kupp, there was his last 3 games. He sat week 18. The 3 games before that, he had less than 6 points all 3 games. And then he didn't do much in the playoffs. But, there's been talk. There was something underlying going on. And if you zoom out a little bit, you look at the rest of the season, he had 5 games of 20-plus PPR points. He is now going – now, of course, on this roster, I have like every other Seattle pass catcher except Kupp. But he's now going – you see in this draft, he went 95th overall. His ADP on Drafters, 97.2. So, like, to me, like, he's a guy that's, like, going in, like, the 9th round. But if, McCaffrey is a first-round pick, there's been positive reports about his health. I think Kupp, he's got the potential to be a guy that once the bullets start flying, he makes a couple pass receptions, scores a touchdown in a preseason game. That wide receiver range from, like, you're looking at this draft. So Addison went 73. From 73 to, from there through about Jaden Higgins at 102. It's all very murky. All those guys have questions and stuff. So I think Kupp, we could see kind of bounce back up. He's a guy who is kind of consistently dropped throughout the offseason. I could see him bounce back up for sure. I think Ray Davis is a guy. I passed on him here, but 12th round running back on the Bills, a very good offense.
My highest owned running back.
Yep. And, with the James Cook stuff, we could see him bump up. We talked about the Dallas guys earlier. CeeDee Lamb's about as high as he can go. But I could also see him. He's going to stay there. But the other guys, the Pickens, Ferguson, Dak Prescott, especially when we see the bullets start flying, see what those guys are doing. I think they could see some positive ADP movement. You took Brian Thomas here. We didn't talk too deeply about your roster specifically, but you took him 5th overall, which is way above. He's usually a 2-3 turn pick. I believe his ADP is like 13. But when you look at him, he was the wide receiver 1 over Jamar Chase during the stretch run last season. And the Travis Hunter stuff. So an interesting tidbit from their GM was that he did all of his offensive stuff during OTAs and minicamp, or he was primarily on offense. But the comment was they felt like that was the side of the ball he needed more reps on to kind of get up to speed with, whereas defense he could kind of be thrown in. So if Hunter is a little bit more of a mix and match type player and isn't just primarily on offense, there's for sure paths to where Thomas is the guy and then Hunter just, he's a high leverage situation offensive player. And in that case, he has as high a ceiling basically as anybody.
Yeah, for me, it's just I really prefer to personally lean into a wide receiver in the first round. And, in that range at the 5-6 pick, it's almost always, Gibbs or Barkley or Bijan Robinson. That's kind of like the ADP appropriate type player there. But I generally shy away from that. So I'm, just pulling up a guy.
Yeah. And to the, to circle back on the Cowboys thing, the thing that they're priced back down to where they were 2 years ago before they had a massive season. And Ferguson missed some time last season with injury. CeeDee Lamb held out deep into camp and probably was never quite himself or not, he was coming off that wide receiver 1 season. He still had a decent year, but he had the shoulder injury he was playing through at one point. And then early in the year, he took some time to kind of get going, and Dak, of course, got hurt. So a lot of things, a lot of negative things that happened in that Cowboys season last year. And then, of course, the addition of Pickens, which, to me, it changes the offensive dynamic to such a large degree, similar to like when AJ Brown went to the Eagles, and his arrival put everybody else into place. I think Jalen Tolbert is a very good NFL wide receiver, but I don't think he can be your wide receiver too. I don't think he has that kind of skill set. But I think he can thrive as that other guy. Kavontae Turpin is kind of explosive, gadgety type.
Gadgety.
Yeah. He's not going to be like I could see them using him out of the backfield a little bit, just with all the backfield dynamics we've talked about. I could see that him developing a little bit of a role there too. But in general, the rising tide concept of this Cowboys offense, and if they're moving the ball more, they're scoring more points, they're getting more first downs. Kind of everybody can benefit. So yeah, I think for Jake Ferguson, another guy that he's being drafted in the 13th round. I think we could see him bump up a couple rounds, as that Cowboys offense probably is going to look really good.
Yeah, I think I guess staying on Cowboys for 10 more seconds, like for me, like Lamb at the 5th pick is a guy you probably get at 50% of the time or more. Like he's there, and I don't know. I feel like I never pass on him when he's there in that range. And then for me, I do really like taking shots on Tolbert in the 19th, 20th round. I feel like he's got upside to give you a few usable weeks. Like he has spike week potential from his upside. So I do like taking him. And then I guess for me, just personally in that range where you kind of gave us that Addison to Higgins range, I really like Rashad Bateman. I mean, I find myself kind of pulling him up half a round a good bit. Like, in that 9th, 10th round is typically where he goes. Like most of the time he goes in the 10th. If he goes in the 9th, it's because I'm in a draft and I take him in the 9th. And to me, that's just kind of keeping an eye on where Lamar Jackson is in the draft. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like while correlation isn't everything, I do feel like if you've got Lamar Jackson and Rashad Bateman is at the top of the ADP queue, like he's a guy that you're just generally clicking. So if Lamar is to my right on this type of a board, like Bateman's a guy that I do like kind of grabbing in that range. I feel like you saw him have a pretty strong season last year. And you got Flowers kind of coming back off of injury. Like I feel like Bateman is a guy that I really do like at his ADP.
For sure. All right. Well, I think we've talked through most everything. Sure, we missed on some things, but there's a lot going on. And of course, for our subscribers, we're on top of it all. We'll have rankings updates today, have a storyboard coming out. Once again, just a reminder, training camp opening price drop. OWS Best Ball Basics, $29. Best Ball Plus, $69. You can find the link in the description. Thanks again for joining us. Billy, you have any parting shots before we go?
No, anything we missed, we'll try to cover. We'll try to cover next week. Now,
right.
I'm broadcasting from Colorado today, hence the background. Next week, I'll be broadcasting from Alaska. So
there you go. Man,
it'll be a real wake and snake for me if we try to do it at noon Eastern.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, we might have to adjust for next week. Just a heads up, guys. So that being said, I am Mike. He is Billy. Thank you all for joining us. Check us out at oneweekseason.com. You can find us on Discord. You can find us on X. You can find us in the draft streets. We are heating up. Things are going. We will have updates for you daily on our Discord. And certainly ready to roll. NFL is here for the next 6 months, as all of us and our significant others are excited for, right, Billy? All right. We'll see you guys next week. Thanks for joining us. Peace.
1 week season.